Good afternoon and welcome back to Asgard, and today I just wanted to do a quick tutorial that Naraya had asked me about, and I've been trying to get it out for them, but when I first recorded it the other day I wasn't happy with the recording, and so I decided to re-record it, and then a lot of stuff happened with Skyrim and different things, and I got behind, and it's just been crazy. But anyhow, they were asking for just some tips and stuff about how I go about building and planning out a base and running power and connecting everything to the applied energistic system and things like that. So I'm just going to briefly talk to you about the building process. Now, when I start a series, if you guys have noticed, generally it will be a few episodes, sometimes more than others. Infotech, of course, that is a Greg Tech pack, but Infotech was, I think, 10 episodes before we started setting up the first area, and then I was like, no, we're going to move over to this place instead, and so we ended up moving areas and all that, and, you know, generally it will be a little while after my, after I start a pack before I really start building. And the reason is because for me, I will explore a bit. So if we open up, well, can't open up the map here, but if you notice in this series, this is Crack Pack, of course. When we actually first started, we were right over here, and I did a bit of exploring, kind of looking at the landscape, and that's generally how I will start. So I'll just jump in the pack, I'll build my hobbit hole, I'll start mining, I'll start cutting wood and all that stuff, and just going through the basic motions of a new game. And when I first start, I'm not going to worry a bit about building a base. It's not going to be something that concerns me initially. And the moment that I start building is when I find some area that I can look at and say, okay, I can imagine this type of base here, and I want to build this type of base. And honestly, I think it will really, if you find the right area, it's really going to call to you. So generally I'll find an area and go, oh my god, that's beautiful, like I want to build there. And that's the type of areas that I will immediately gravitate towards. And the reason I picked this place is because, whenever I went over this and saw like the deep ocean and the way it was shaped and everything, I thought it was really, really beautiful. And I wanted to build, all of a sudden I wanted to build a water-based base here, with a little bit of underwater and a little bit of above water stuff. And then once you find a place and you look at the landscape and you think about what you want, the theme that you want, and I do suggest you pick some kind of a theme and don't just, let's say you're building a house and you have this room that's all red and this room that's all blue and this room that's all purple, and it causes a major clash with your eyes. So try to pick something that is not necessarily the same exact style. Like if you look around here, we don't have the same exact style around. But once it's all finished, I feel like it's going to feel like a city almost, with this mage tower in the middle. And of course, the color schemes and stuff here are different, but that is because it's it's a magic-based mod tower. So I try to build the buildings based on what's going to go in them. And if you're building a house, of course, it's a little bit different. You're going to build the rooms and stuff based on what goes in them, but try to keep a central theme. So if you're using a lot of gray accents around your house, try to stay with gray accents, or something kind of close to that. Make sure it kind of flows from one room to the other, just like a real life house would be. It would have some kind of central cohesion across the entire house. So I do suggest you do that. Find a theme, and once you kind of come up with that, once you have a general idea of your landscape and everything, start sketching it out. I'll include a couple links in the description for websites that you can go to that have an area where you can go on a grid and kind of sketch out what you want to do and everything. And I do suggest that you do that because just a little bit of sketching, it doesn't have to be the AE2 building's going to go here and this is going to go here. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't do it that way. I know some people probably do. They probably sketch out where every building is going to go and everything, and how everything's going to be laid out, and that's great for them. Everybody builds differently. I do a mix of planned and organic building. So, I'll initially sketch out an area and say, okay, this is going to be, for example, this crack pack build, I planned initially that it was going to be these big circles with the mage tower being the main focus of that area, of that build and everything. And that's really all I had when I first started building, was this elevated circle in the middle and some circles around it and a general idea of what I was going to go for. And then since then it's been just really organic as far as the way I've built it. And, I've just kind of added on to it as I get ideas and things that I want to, include in the build and everything. And another thing I suggest is if you get on one day and like the day before you were planning, okay, tomorrow I'm going to build the, energy storage area. And then you get on and you really don't feel like building the energy storage area, don't do it. Because that's one of the worst things you can do. That's like if you were to get writer's block, you don't just jot a bunch of crap down and say, okay, that's that. And the reason being is because it's very, when you don't feel like doing something, it's going to be very half-assed. So I know it probably bugs some people that watch me, but I've got buildings here without roofs. I've got buildings that are unfinished, like this one. This was our first one, and I haven't quite came around to finishing it. This area, I still have to finish building out the stairs and stuff. But that's because I haven't felt the drive to do that. And I'm not going to push myself to build something and then it turned out half-assed, once it's done and everything. So I do suggest you wait until you are ready to build it. And don't let the pressure of, I've got to get this done, I've got to have this building done or this build done necessarily today. So, just kind of build things as it feels right. And then generally I think your most like creative stuff comes out then, because you're actually passionate. At that exact moment you are passionate about what you're building, and that's great. That's what you want to do. So once you get it sketched and you have an idea, I got a little bit off topic there. I do that sometimes. I apologize. But once you get a general sketch of what you're going to do, whether it be an extremely detailed sketch or, something just really, really rough, and you can do it however you want to. You can just pull out a piece of paper and do it. I use graph paper. I don't even use a program on the computer. I use graph paper because that's what I feel comfortable with. So, you really kind of have to find your medium as far as where you want to draw the stuff out and where you want to do all your planning and stuff. The grid book that I have right now, it's actually like a really thick grid book, and I actually got it when I first started playing Minecraft back in vanilla, like forever ago. And, it's got sketches from back then of stuff that I was building and everything, that I would work on, because ever since I was younger, I was very, very like anal about over preparing things and being like, okay, let's draw this out and let's make sure this is how I want it and things like that. So just be aware of that. A sketch is really, really going to help you once you get started, even if it's just rough planning. And once you get past that, the next thing that I generally do is I start sketching everything out in-game with cobblestone, because cobblestone is something you're going to have a ton of it. You can drop it and it's fine. You can lose it, it's fine. It's not a big deal. So cobblestone is generally what I use. Now, if I was maybe someplace where I get more dirt than cobblestone, I guess, you might use dirt, but whatever is, plentiful for you, that's what I would suggest sketching it out. And so that's what I started. I still haven't finished this, but we've got a bunch of cobblestone sketches, and I did cobblestone grounds because at first I wasn't sure how I wanted to do the landscaping and the building placement and all that. So I start with cobblestone until I get something set up. So like over here today, after I do this episode, I'm going to continue working on this, and I'm going to build a fountain here and start landscaping this and everything. So definitely just start sketching it out in cobblestone, because you can always break that. You can always remove it. Or if you're playing modded, there's always some kind of a block, whether it be the wand of equal, or the wand cap of equal trade, or the Ender tech exchangers, or just all different kinds of stuff that you can use to exchange those blocks. And you know, it's already built, it's already sketched out, so now you just got to go through and change all those blocks. It's great. So once you get it all sketched out, then you know, then it's really up to you to find your personal preference. Me, I'll just kind of, like I said, organically build. So, you know, buildings will just kind of like, I'll look and say, okay, today I kind of want to start working on an AE building, and I'm feeling passionate about that. So, you know, I'll spend a while, not necessarily any particular amount of time. It just depends how long it takes for me to come up with a build that I like. And I'll start thinking about it and kind of do some other stuff on the side while I'm thinking about it. And then finally, I'll have an idea, it's going to click, and I'll start building it. And sometimes it may take a while, you know, and you'll reach points where you're like, okay, I don't know where to move on from there, so just take some time and think about it. And then you'll just, honestly, for me, which, like I said, everybody's different as far as the way that they build, but for me, it's very organic after that, and things will just start kind of coming together and, you know, whatnot. So, you know, that's my main suggestions as far as building. Like I said, I'll include a couple links in the description if you want to use like an online grid tool to help you plan out your bases. You know, they'll definitely help you. Or you can do like me and get grid paper, or you can just pull out notebook paper and just kind of sketch it. It doesn't really matter, just so long that it suits you. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get into running cables and stuff, which we will go over to Creative World for that, and I'll show you kind of some cable management tips and things like that and whatnot. But one thing I do really suggest is always, unless you are 100% sure that you are not going to need it, always leave at least one block space between floors. So, like, for example, you'll notice these black outlines. I think they look good, but they're also, that is an empty space in between floors. So, you know, this is the floor of one, you know, this is the floor of this floor, and this is the ceiling of this floor. So, you know, I've got that empty space there, and that is for running cables and doing different things, maybe putting, in this case, putting nitor, you know, below the floor, so I can set the alchemical constructs up and they don't look all janky with the nitor floating like above the ground and then the alchemical construct just stuck up against the wall floating off the ground. You know, you leave that space, and honestly, if you don't already do that, when you start running cables, you will notice a huge improvement to how easy it is to actually run those cables, because you can you know, just move the floor, or, you know, get down there in the floor and run your cables through there. Now, if you're using like Ender.io, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I do still suggest you have some space, because you know, you might want to use some other things other than just Ender.io for that floor space. But Ender.io has the added benefit of being able to run all 5 of its cables through a single block space, you know, no problem. And you can also facade it and all that. Ender.io is extremely useful for that. So, you know, if you're going to, for sure going to be using, you know, just those conduits in a build, and you know you don't need the floor space, you don't have to leave it, but, you know, generally I do suggest that you have it, because it does pay off 9 times out of 10. So, but like, for example, if we pop up here, there was actually one floor that didn't have a space, if you noticed, and that is because it's this room, and it's not, you know, we don't exactly have a certain floor area, so there's really no reason to leave a space, because there's really no way to utilize that, especially with this room, because I wanted to make it kind of wild, crazy floors and stuff that run around the infusion area. Another thing, if you want to run cables up through your base and you don't want to use the outer walls for whatever reason, or if maybe it's something that can't be facaded, one thing that you can do is just do a column. So we'll go over that in just a second once we go over to the creative world. So, but anyway, that's pretty much the building tips that I have. If you guys have any specific questions, of course, feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to answer those for you, or whatever you have questions about, you're always welcome to ask me, and I will, answer them as best as I can. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump on over there. Alright, one thing that I do want to cover before we get into cable, running cables over a distance and things like that, is I just quickly want to go over the enhanced building guide. I know I've covered this in a couple series and everything. It's a really, really great block, and I do suggest you use it if you have any kind of trouble building out designs and stuff. I even use it just because it honestly streamlines it. Even if you can build those and you have no trouble building a circle or whatever, it does help a ton. So basically the way it works is you set it down and you apply a redstone signal, and it's going to activate and show all these white blocks. Now what you can do is you can toggle through this and show different shapes. So like this is planes mode, and there's, let's say, we'll quickly go through all of them. There's axis mode, an octagon, a hexagon, a pentagon, a triangle, a dome, which is like that, a full cuboid, which is just a square. If you need help building a square, there it is. It is good for like large scale stuff though, in all seriousness. A cuboid, a cylinder, then you got a sphere, which is actually goes underground, so if we dig down here you'll see that it keeps going, whereas the dome is pretty much above ground. Oh, I'm in creative mode. I can break bedrock. You can tell I don't get enough creative mode in my life. And then you got back to planes and axes and all that. So it's definitely something that I suggest just for having that outline. But the thing, the standard building guide does that outline as well, but the thing that makes the enhanced one extra special is, let's say we wanted to build this cylinder, I guess. Is that what we're on? Cylinder? No, we're on a hexagon. Okay. But say we wanted to build this hexagon out of cobblestone, all we gotta do is just sit here and hold right click. And you'll notice that here in just a second, there we go. And as long as you have those blocks in your inventory, it will, fill that up. So it'll be block by block, but it is a lot quicker than building by hand. And then really, really quickly, if you want to change the dimensions, all these little plus and minus symbols around here, that's what that does. So if we hit plus here, it's going to increase the height or the elevation, and if we hit down here, it's going to increase the depth. And if we use the subtract, of course, it's going to subtract that away. Now, if you hit these arrows here, that's going to reset it back to what it originally was. And then these are going to push out. This is going to push out in that direction. This is going to push out in that direction. And then this, that direction. And this one, that direction. So, that's basically how to use the building guide. And if you ever, want to build a dome or want to build a circle or something like that within Minecraft, instead of going online and looking at like a graph of how to build circles or any of that, just get your enhanced building guide. It's extremely, extremely cheap to make. There's really no reason not to make it. And I do suggest go ahead and make the enhanced one, because the standard one, of course, you can't do the block place with that. And it is really, really handy tool to have. Alright, and with that said, I think I am going to end this episode out here, because I know it is running kind of long. It's going to end up being like 2 20-minute things. So I do apologize about the length, but I'm trying to answer the question as thoroughly as I can and give as much information as I can. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure and hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already for more daily videos, and feel free to comment down below with any questions or anything that you have, because I'm always up for answering your questions if you have any, because that's kind of my goal is to help you guys out with anything that I can, anyway, within my power to do so. So anyway, next episode we will be covering just some power management and different things, little tips, and some blocks that will really help you out as far as that goes. Blocks that I use for medium to long distance transfer. So anyway, I hope you guys join me for that. If you if you're having any questions or anything like that about that kind of stuff. And yeah, until then, do take care, and I hope to see you guys next time.